The stock market started out this year in an absolute mess. Every headline was terrible, every retirement forum was full of fear, and it had recent retirees wondering, are they going to need to go back to work? So you can imagine my surprise when I met with several of my clients, expecting to need to calm their nerves, but I was instead taken aback by a striking lack of worry. New retirees were rightfully nervous, but clients that had been retired for several years were noticeably calm. Almost a visible sense of peace. Now, initially I chalked this up to, hey, been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. They'd been retired for a while and they were used to big market moves. But as I had a few conversations, I came to realize it was deeper than that. Now, as a financial advisor for nearly 20 years, I'm supremely confident in my plans, and I know that the market's going to bounce back, but it's not always easy to copy and paste my confidence onto my clients. So I was eager to learn more. What specifically about your retirement plans have you so worry-free? Now, we've probably covered dozens of retirement planning topics over the years, and I wanted to learn what specific lessons were keeping them so calm so that I can then take those lessons to my younger, more recently retired clients and to all of you on YouTube. Every client had 3 supporting pillars in their retirement plans, and that's the topic of today's video. If you're new to the channel, my name's Ben, and I want to help you have an even better retirement. Let's walk through each of these 3 pillars, starting with one of the most overlooked but powerful tools in your retirement arsenal. Pillar number 1 is all about maximizing your social benefits. That's Social Security and Medicare. Now, when these clients turn 65 and they switch from their expensive private health insurance plans to Medicare, they were often able to save anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 per month for the couple. Now, that one shift dramatically reduced their monthly expenses, which then boosted their confidence by reducing the amount that would have to come from their portfolio on a monthly basis. Now, many of them had also just turned 70, and that's when we flipped the switch on Social Security. Specifically on the higher earning spouse, we waited until age 70, locking in that maximum benefit and strengthening the survivor benefit. Now, why wait until 70? Well, because it gave us valuable room for tax planning in their 60s, things like Roth IRA conversions and tax gain harvesting, before Social Security started bumping up their income. And now that they had that larger benefit base in place of Social Security, they could then reduce their portfolio withdrawals. Now, for some, that meant from going from like a 6 or a 7 or even higher percent annual withdrawal rate down to just 3 or 4% per year, which then dramatically improves the long-term sustainability of that plan. Now, you might be thinking, Ben, 6 or 7% per year, that's way more than a 3 or 4% withdrawal rate. How could they possibly spend that much? Well, they can because of pillars 2 and 3, which we're going to talk about right now. Pillar number 2, keep years of income outside the stock market. Pillar number 2 is pretty simple. Don't have all of your money in the stock market. If you do, you're going to have a hard time achieving a worry-free retirement. Well, why is that? It's because you're going to be checking the stock market constantly, and that's terrible for your blood pressure. Yes, we all know that the stock market has more good years than bad years, but it moves a lot. If 100% of your money is in the market, you're going to be signing up for a high blood pressure and, just less enjoyment in your retirement. Your net worth is going to swing wildly from month to month if you're 100% in stocks. So if we know we can't have all of our money in the stock market, how much should we have in bonds and cash? Well, that depends on your risk appetite and depends on your retirement income needs. Some people are just fine with having 1 or 2 years of income set aside. Others feel much more confident with 5 to 7 years outside of the stock market. Now, here's an easy way to visualize it. If you're withdrawing 4% a year from your portfolio and you've got a 60-40 portfolio, that's 60% stock and 40% bonds, you've already got 10 years worth of income not in the stock market. That alone could give you a tremendous peace of mind. Think of your bonds and cash as railroad tracks laid out in front of you. That way, whatever scary thing is happening in the market, it doesn't feel quite as scary because you've already set aside the income. You've laid that track out ahead of yourself for years and years to come. So what types of bonds should you be considering? Well, really all of them. In the same way that we recognize the benefits of a diversified stock portfolio, we need a diversified bond portfolio. So if you want to visualize a properly diversified bond portfolio, think of a diving board. The rigid end of the diving board, that's where the ladder is. That's where your short-term money comes from. Bonds with less than 4 or 5 years to maturity, things like money market funds, short-term bond funds, super solid, super steady. You can count on that part of your portfolio, and that's where your monthly income comes from. The other end, the bouncy end of the portfolio, that's bonds with more than 10 years to maturity, long-term bonds, much more responsive to interest rates, good or bad, more flexible, but more volatile, right? You don't want to be living off that month to month. And then we've got our intermediate term bonds, that's 5 to 10 years until maturity, and that's right in the middle. When you own the full spectrum of bonds, a true bond ladder, that's going to include short-term, intermediate term, and long-term bonds. That way you're prepared for all interest rate environments. That bond ladder then becomes part of your shock absorbers when, not if, but when the market dips. Let me share with you a quick client story about the benefits of having a fully funded bond ladder. One couple that I met with had a big vacation to Europe planned during this down market. And this client called in and said, "Do you think we should cancel our European vacation?" And I said, "Absolutely not. Because that trip is already funded. Well, how is it funded in a down market? Because we moved that money into bonds years ago as part of our rebalancing process. Which brings me to the engine behind it all, systematic rebalancing. 2 times a year, we review and reshift portfolio gains from stocks into bonds and cash. That means essentially, stock gains from the past bull markets from decades ago become the funding source for retirement income during the next decade. We're living off of stock gains from 10 years ago. That's why knowing how many years of income you have in safe assets isn't just a number, it's a major confidence booster. It's the reason that clients can stay the course even when markets get scary. But even having years of income set aside isn't the end of the story. If we truly want a worry-free retirement, we need more contingencies. We've got to plan strategically and increase and reduce our income. And that brings us to pillar 3, reduce income in order to spend more. Now, as counterintuitive as that sounds, you can actually spend more in retirement if you have a plan to temporarily reduce your income during rough patches in the market. Now, here's why. The market is good more often than it's bad. So you can spend more in good years if you've got a plan to spend a little bit less when the market gets rough. This is what we call retirement income guardrails. Think of it like this. You're spending $10,000 a month. If your portfolio drops by 20% and stays there for a bit, we simply reduce our spending by 10% down to $9,000 a month. We go from $10,000 to $9,000. Your Social Security doesn't change, your pension doesn't change, just your portfolio income. And this gives your portfolio time to recover and keeps you from locking in market losses. And if you haven't turned on Social Security yet, this is the time to consider doing so, either with the smaller benefit or both the smaller and the larger benefit to reduce the need for portfolio withdrawals. All of our clients have a very specific portfolio number in mind. Once our portfolio drops below that number, then we have a conversation about reducing their portfolio income. This is key to making sure that we don't run out of money in retirement. But it's also a key to spending way more than most safe withdrawal rates when the markets are really good, which is actually way more common than bad markets. And that's not to say that the prospect of reducing your income isn't scary. It is scary. In fact, I like to use this analogy. It's like watching a scary movie. When the killer is banging on the front door of the cabin, it's pretty terrifying. But it's even scarier when the banging stops and you no longer know where the killer is. He could be anywhere. That's how a market crash feels when you don't have a plan. But if you do have a plan, it's like a pressure release valve. You already know what you're going to do. You know when you're going to reduce your income. You're going to know how much to reduce it, and you're going to know for how long. That kind of planning leads to supreme confidence. Because if your portfolio is above X, then you can spend Y. And if your portfolio drops below that line, well, you've already agreed in advance to spend a little bit less. And that changes everything. This is what allows many of our clients to spend more in good times because they know exactly how they'll adjust in bad times. A worry-free retirement does not happen by accident. It's got to be built pillar by pillar with intention, flexibility, and yes, a little bit of courage when it counts. So if you want help building these 3 pillars into your retirement plan, click on the Work With Me link in the video description below. Other than that, I hope this video makes your retirement even better, and we'll see you in the next one.